So, what happened with me and wants to be a superhero? It was pretty neat. It was pretty interesting. I didn't realize that there was an online community involved, and because as a result, a lot of the guys who were doing it, they knew each other. They had been talking to each other, and I was quite impressed with the costumes they made. I felt in fact, even I kind of knew people would make some costumes, and then just to see what some of these guys did, I felt pretty ashamed, in some ways, because it's like these. I walked in there and I said, I'm Average Joe. I explained my whole thing. And after a while, I'd even come to the realization, I said, ninjas. You know how ninjas got around? In regular clothes. They didn't dress up in black pajamas. They blended in with the crowd of people. They acted like servants. That's why that's why they could sneak around, because they just blended in. And that's all I'm just trying to say is that, this is what you can do. This is how you can be. And you don't need a superhero. You don't need a superpower. And, as I started explaining it, a lot of the guys there, they said, you'll make it on the show. You will definitely make it. And I was just shocked at that. I was like, but I didn't put any thought into a costume. I just focused specifically on the idea of the character. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's what'll win people over, or that's what won them over when I started talking to it. Because that's the other thing, is that in a way we were trying to impress each other, but we're also addressing each other and presenting ourselves. And unfortunately, I was pretty tired, this morning or this afternoon when we started doing it. I was just drowsy. I was just like, I was just struggling to get some energy going. And as a result, I was just pretty lethargic. And I was, eyes, half shut, looking around, just like, just not really that put together. Just so tired. I can understand why either. I had breakfast, but I made the effort, to talk to the people, and because I was telling them, like, look, I'll do interviews with you guys, because whether it makes it on the show or not. And then luckily later on they actually did interviews, so I kind of piggybacked off of one of the guys there. I think his name was Scott, and this other guy Christian, who real neat guys. You're going to see him when I post the footage. But I was very impressed with the guys who were running the show. For one thing, they were kind of slapping things together, or some things were still falling apart. But still, these guys have been doing their thing, doing their promotion tours for WWE, and that was, oh my God, that's the funniest bit. You're going to see some footage, and you're going to wonder, like, okay, so what is this? What is that? This and that? And I may or may not be able to say this, because this is the thing. Sci Fi, and the parent company NBC, but really Sci Fi, they got a pretty, I was surprised that they had a pretty good leash around the show, and especially the producers. But, everybody there was not involved in the final cut of the show. Even the guy that was running the gig there, he was like, I have no say in it, and I was like, really? So we can't kiss your butt? And but the way it worked out was, I got there at about 10:30, almost 11, and it was like 10:30 that I got there, and I started walking around. I was looking around at stuff, but about 11 that I started finding the other people who had arrived, the contestants who had arrived, and they're pretty conspicuous, but the mall had been set up for a WWE event, and the guy Christian, and there's one guy, I forget his name, Boxcar Jones, maybe. Well, he was an old wrestler. I figured he was important. I didn't realize he was a famous wrestler, but I figured he was a wrestler since he was speaking. A couple guys I was asking about if they knew my buddy Mike Knox, and nobody there knew him. So I said, well, is there a chance I could give somebody a note and hopefully in some way I can reach Mike? And one guy finally approached me and said, yeah, right at that time, somebody else came out and said, I got a question. And I was trying to jokingly look at the guy. It's like, yeah, me too. You may want to wait in line. And that's what I wanted to say. It came out wrong. I was like, yeah, you're going to have to wait in line. And he's like, excuse me? What, is that the way to address somebody? And I'm sorry, I apologize. I was trying to crack a joke. I didn't mean it to come out that way. And he's, just don't, and God, this, an explosion of anger out of this guy. And I'm smiling, I'm just, cheery, I'm a little drowsy, I'm smiling, I'm enjoying it, what's going on. And then when he just turned on me, I was, oh goodness, and I really, I was like, hey, buddy, look, I'm not attacking you, I'm not trying to insult you, especially in front of your son, of all things. I was just saying, yeah, I wanted to ask a question as well, and, in some way, it's an informal way of sharing knowledge, information that, I got the same thing, and you may want to wait in line so that he knows he's in the right spot. That's all I'm trying to do. That's, and I'm not even thinking about it. That's just the way I operate. It's like, how can, this whole, how can I help other people thing about personal philosophy stuff. So I felt bad about that. That just kind of bummed me out. I was like, walking around the mall, I was like, oh boy, it's not a good way to start the day. But I linked up with the guys, and I've been trying to find a typewriter. Couldn't find a typewriter. Finally just had to write it out, so it was pretty bad. I'm hoping that my video will win over some people. And just sat down and just kind of started talking to people. And I was drowsy, and I finally after a while I was like, I'm just, I wish I felt better. But I was able to talk to some people, some of the contestants, and neat guys, just interesting, neat costumes. Neat personalities. A lot of them knew each other. They had been interacting with each other online through the superhero forum over on sci-fi.com, I believe. And I started interviewing a couple people. Then the show started. And like I said, we're set up for WWE, so there's a ton of people there. Everybody's walking by, and they're giving these queer glances at the superhero contestants, and what's kind of neat is nobody's paying attention to me at all, and it's not by purpose, but when I really started hanging out and right in the middle of that group and started, just started doing our thing, people would look and they'd just be staring at each person intently, like, wow, okay, what is that costume? Okay, and then they get to me and just glance right over me to the next person. That's what I noticed, and I was like, that's very interesting. I was like, boy. And I wanted to start talking to some of these guys, it's a neat little sociological experiment that if you have a group of people who say, well, I'm a hero, or I want to be a superhero, and this and that. And it's, okay, so each person is dressed up, each person is geared for their particular thing. And so the one person with no gear, one person that doesn't stand out, one person that just seems like yourself, you just don't pay attention to them. And, it's kind of a weird way. I feel kind of, it's kind of neat. I kind of like that because, if I do get some footage on the show, I hope that idea comes through. That, you can be a hero. It doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter what you have. If you feel you can do it, you can do it. So, let's see what happens. Got sidetracked there. So I was able to fill out the form right there, which I didn't want to do, but I knew the answers beforehand. And then we got online, took some pictures. I was okay because at the time, while we're waiting around, and after I started interviewing people, they turned on the show for WWE. They had these two guys. One of them was Christian, and they. Just drumming up the crowd and, throwing out some free stuff and bringing up a lot of kids, getting their pictures taken and, so it was neat stuff like that. And after a while, they said, all right, everybody line up behind the stage. So we wound up, and I kept pushing myself to the back because I thought that what would happen was we'd have kind of like an interview, we'd do a little talk, and then they kind of send us on our merry way. So I was like, some of these guys are in costume, and especially confining, spandex stuff, and I was like, these guys should be in front, because they're pretty,